Hi there, welcome to video number 2 in this sequence, looking at reprogramming the simplest aircraft, the C152, the Cessna. Now that there's a new way of working with Microsoft Flight Simulator and Axis and Ohs and the Honeycomb Yoke. So I'm going to sort of go for a better way of developing this aircraft and talk you through it. As I said, I've got a Honeycomb Yoke which has got all this hardware switches built into it. If you haven't got that kind of yoke, if you haven't got switches on yours, then you're probably going to use a Stream Deck or something like that to emulate the switches. I'm going to keep my profile pretty much as it is, I think. I might come back to it later. I have that sitting on top of the yoke, so although I'm not going to use the buttons on the Stream Deck to control lights, so they still act as indicators for me. So when I switch on, it will show me on here when what's on and what's off, so that's quite nice having an indicator. But let's get into the actual meat of this, getting to the cockpit and start to move things around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my camera up in the top right hand corner, so hopefully you can see what's going on still here, but you can actually see the actual switches that I'm using here. So it's really laid out as this 172 rather than the 152, but I think every aircraft has beacon, landing light, taxi light, nav light, strobe light. It's just they're in a different order. So I'm going to keep them. I'm not going to relabel them because it's actually printed on here quite nicely. And there's the battery and the alternator and the avionics bus. And over here you can possibly just see there's a Magneto switch here. That's what I would work with. If you're only ever going to fly the light aircraft, the GAs, then you probably don't need to touch this at all. You can probably live with it and go with it as it is. But because I might be programming slightly more complex aircraft, I may want to change how this Magneto switch works, or some of these switches here. So just for future proofing, what I want to do is to remove those from here and put it all over to Axis and Ohs, because what I don't want to do is to have to keep remembering to change the profile here depending on which aircraft I fly. I just want to leave this alone. I'm not going to change any of the bits on the actual yoke itself for the moment. Most of these buttons are allocated to the cameras, and I haven't really thought about how they work. I know they don't really work for me. I don't really like them very much, but I want to do a bit of experimenting before I touch those. So I'm going to leave those alone. And the other thing that's on, I'm going to leave the axes as well. The axes will be controlled from here. They're absolutely fine with those. The other thing that's controlled on there, but I'm not going to touch, but is interesting, is the elevator trim. They've got it so that there are 2 buttons here, which is as it is in some of the aircraft, that if you've got the electric trims, you have to press both buttons. There are 2 buttons here and you have to press both of them to make the trim work. So there's a safety feature. You can't just do it with one button, so you need to press buttons 5 and 7 or 6 and 8 at the same time. But in fact you don't. If I press just the left button, nothing happens. But if I press just the right button here, if I'm pressing just this right hand button, you'll see that it does actually activate it. So something strange. Needs a bit of investigation what's going on here with that. But anyway, this is the areas that I want to remove. I don't want these on here. I'm going to want to take those off. One of the interesting features is you can see that it's using buttons 21, 23, 25, 27, 29. These are all the odd number buttons here, and they're the ones that are, I don't know if you can see on this diagram, it's quite small, but it's actually the buttons in the up position is registered as all the odd numbers, and the even numbers are when they're in the off position. But the default profile doesn't actually use the down position. There is actually a contact within the switch at both top and bottom. But if I let's switch on just the beacon lights. So just going to use this one here. Switch on the beacon light, and switch it off, you can see it's activated and deactivated, but it doesn't actually register a positive off. Button number 22 doesn't have anything assigned to it at all. If I select button number 22 out of here and have a look at what's going on, there is nothing assigned to it at all. When we come to use Axis and Ohs, we do want to use both button 21 and button 22, one for on, one for off, which is sort of something you need to be aware of. So what I would do is I'm going to leave the default alone, so that I can always come back to the the default profile, and know that I haven't really lost anything. So I'm just seeing the assigned ones rather than all of the different options. So this is just what's assigned to this. What I would do is I would open the preset manager and make a duplicate copy of it, so that I'm not going to mess that up, and change the name. I can call it anything I love. I'm going to call this no switches. So the axes are still there, the hat switches and the stuff on the yoke is there, but I'm taking off the main switches. So what I want to do is very simply just remove, and if I start sort of down here, I'm going to leave that one there. That's on the yoke itself. So let's start with the lights. Really simple. Click on it, clear the current input and validate it. And you'll see it's disappeared off the list because this is filtering it out, and because it's not assigned anymore. So we'll do the landing lights as well. Click on there, clear the current input and validate it, and it's gone. So what I'll do is I'll pause the recording now, and I'll just clear all these, and so we'll get back to a profile with none of the switches in. Okay, so back now. I've still got all the camera settings there, they still exist. I've still got my axes, I've still got my trim, and I've got the autopilot, but all the other buttons, the master battery alternator, the avionics buses have gone, and the magnetos have gone, and all those switches have gone. So we can apply and save that. And if we now go back into the cockpit, what I want to do now is to start using Axis and Ohs to allocate the buttons so that it can work from here. So I'm working with one of the other liveries rather than the main one at the moment, because the main one is up and working, so I don't really want to lose anything from there. Once I finish with here, then I can transfer that over and it becomes the default for all of the 152s. So I'm going to work on this kind of sub livery here. So we need to start doing some allocations. I'm going to start with the lights to start with, the sort of, and I'm going to work from left to right on here. So I'm going to go beacon first. So we're just going to click here and we filter down looking for beacon, and I want to choose this new way of working. There is a beacon on and beacon off sort of legacy version, but I want to experiment and sort of be prepared for the future. So let's see if this beacon here, and that's there, the beacon 1. There is only one beacon, so it's going to be beacon 1, and it's going to put a 1 in here by default, and that means it's going to allocate it to the on. So I now push the button on and it's picked that button here. Now the numbers don't match what's on the diagram. This one has registered it as 20. According to the manual, it's a whole different number. According to the diagram that came up on the control panel, it was the odd numbers were up and the even numbers were down. I don't really care, so long as it detects the right button and works properly. I'm going to work with it. So we'll add that in here. So now I want to have a beacon off type command. So the filter's still there for beacons, so we can filter that. And this time I want the beacon to be off, to be a 0. So I just go up here and roll my mouse button, the roller, to a 0. And now I switch the switch to off. So it's important that he's in the on position, because it's now going to detect it going to off, and that's button 21 according to its detection. So we'll add that in. And what we'll do, we'll just test it. So I'm going to keep my eye on the beacon light, and it's working exactly the same. So it really doesn't matter what number the button is that it detects. Let it detect it and it sorts it out. Next one across will be the landing light. So we'll do exactly the same as before. We'll filter for landing light and see if there is one of the new input events, and it's this one here. So we're going to do the on one first, making sure it's in the off position. Now push it to on and leave it there. Add that. And in fact, you can see over here that the landing light has detected and switched it on, so we know that's working. So now we'll do the off one in exactly the same way as before. And the filter is still there for landing, and this one's got to be the off version, so we roll the mouse over that, so that's a 0. Switch the switch down, it detects the number on the button, click add, and if you want to, you can just test it on and off. I'm going to go through the rest. I do taxi, the nav and the strobe, but again I'll pause the recording so that you don't have to sit through watching me do 3 more buttons in exactly the same way. Okay, so you're back with me. That's all of that. This row of switches now all allocated. It doesn't show you here which one's on and off, so it might be worth you. Let's have a look at the beacon. Can you see that that one went green? So that's the on is the top one, and the off is the lower one. What you can do, there's the one, that's the on. You could actually give it a custom label. You could say that this one here is beacon on, and this one here, so I'm just double clicking on it, beacon off. And you could do the same for all of those. So you actually could give it a custom label if that's what you wanted to do, so you know exactly which one does what. So you can just check. Yeah, you can see the green lights coming on and off. So that's okay. So the next thing to look at will be allocating these switches here: the alternator, the battery, and the avionics buses. So let's go for alternator. Now when I do alternator, type in a bit more. Alt. Oops. That should do it. And we're looking here, and it's the electrical alternator. So exactly the same process as before. Double click on it. Switch the switch. And let's give it on. If you don't type enough when you do the filter, it'll come up with altitude and altimeter and all sorts of stuff. Putting the E after the alt seems to make it work better. Okay, so let's put that in there, and then we'll do the off version. And I want to use again these new input events, and we'll make that a 0. So that's the off version. Switch it off. Okay, so we've got the on and off. Again, I'm going to pause this, and I'll just do the battery and the avionics bus. So there's nothing dramatic there. It just speed things up for you. Okay, so you're back with us, and I've done the alternator and the battery, and the next switches across are the avionics 1 and 2. Now, interestingly enough, if you do a filter here for avionics, there isn't an input event for that, so we are going to have to use the legacy avionics. We've got master 1 off and on, so I'm going to do the on one first of all. So master avionics 1 on, flip the switch, click add, and now allocate the off. Master 1 off, and the same for avionics 2. So we want master 2 on, and master 2 off. Now, interestingly, we can't test that on here because there is no avionics switch on this one. It's just live. As soon as you turn the battery on and the avionics is on, it's a very primitive aircraft. So we'll need to test that when we come into a more sophisticated aeroplane. So the next one to look at will be the Magneto switches. So it's currently in the off position. And it hasn't really got the Magneto 1, Magneto 2, the both and the start there, so we're going to have to carry on here. So I want to have Magneto, and it's right is the next one from off, is the Magneto right. So that's what I want there. So we're going to go Magneto right and move the switch into the right position and add that. Now I need to go and do the off because the switch is in the right position. This is my opportunity to switch it to off. So Magneto, and I'm looking for the off version. There it is there. So Magneto off, switch it to the off position, switch it back to the right position because I'm going to do the left one next. It's interesting that they've got the Magneto right on the left and Magneto left on the right. How strange it is. But there we are. So back to Magneto. I'm going for Magneto left. Turn it to that left position as the marker has it. Click add. Next one is Magneto both. And the last one then is the start, Magneto start. Now this is one of the newer models of the Honeycomb Yoke. It's spring-loaded, so I've got to hold it into the start, because if I let go it will flick back to both. So hold it in the start position and click on add. I mustn't let go of it, otherwise it will detect the wrong button. So let's just check the Magneto out. So let's go back round to off. There's off, right, left, both, and start. So that works. Now off seems to have a bit of a problem, so I need to investigate what's going on with the off version. Is there an alternative? There is one that says Magneto off, but I had to switch it into that position twice to make it work. I'm going to have one more go at reallocating it. So I want to do button 30, click save. Turn it to right. And that time it's working properly. Okay, could be a slightly faulty switch, who knows. Anyway, that's it. So we've now reallocated all the magnetos, all of those, and we've tested the alternator of the battery. Can't test the avionics just at the moment. So that has now replaced all of the switches. So what I want to do is to save that as a template. So I'm going to save this current setup as a template. And this is going to be my Honeycomb Yoke switches. Click on save, and I'm now going to completely clear that setup. So I'm going to empty the current configuration, so nothing there, and I'm going to apply this template. Now I've got two choices here. If I apply the template, it will just copy all those settings in and I can edit them, or I can link this template to the aircraft, and I think I'm going to do a link. That means if I go into the template and make adjustments to it, then it will automatically be applied and I won't have to reapply the to this aircraft. So let's link it, and I want to have Honeycomb Yoke switches applied, so it's linked, and there they are. They're all linked. I can get in and edit them, as far as I know, but it does. It's got this kind of grey background to them, which indicates that it is linked to the main template. So if I make a change in the template, that will be reflected here. Okay, so that's it. That's the yoke kind of sorted now. Let's just check that a few of these are working. I can see the switches here moving. I move the strobe here. I can see it's moving on there. So that's all up and working. So now I've got total control through Axis and Ohs, and I don't have to go into the control options on Microsoft Flight Simulator. Oh, just a quick update at the end of this. I noticed that I had allocated the wrong Magneto both. If I double click on here, the one that I allocated was this one here, and it should have been this one here. So I've just double clicked on there, and now if I switch that to Magneto both and save that, that actually updates the template completely. The other thing I've discovered is that the Magneto going to off works absolutely fine until you've gone to use start. If I press start, now I try to go back to off, it doesn't go straight back to off. If I go to right and then off, it does go off. So it works for everything else absolutely perfectly, unless I've gone as far around to start. Now it won't go to off. Now, is it a bug or is it a feature? I'm not sure. I bet in the actual aircraft you wouldn't have to turn the key twice. I don't think it's a safety feature to stop you accidentally turning your engine off, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know anything about it. Okay, so that's I hope cleared that last little bit up. Okay, on to the next recording.